the tertiary institutions. In fact, we wish you all the best. And I know you don't have geography tomorrow, but then I want to believe that your colleagues in charge of the giant screens in your dining halls and all that are making sure that when it is time for you guys to listen to this particular lesson, it is made available for you to benefit. Is that okay? And so without wasting much time, I just want to remind you that my name is Samuel Sakyi, as usual. The trending name is Boga Sam, a teacher of Achimota School here in Accra. Now, one thing that we need to understand that, especially for the geographers across the world, one fundamental practical task that every geographer must bother him or herself with is the fact that we need to study the world's population, okay? Know the number of people who are living in your country and living elsewhere. And not just knowing these people, but also know why they stay at where they are. Talking of the pattern of settlement where they find themselves, the interactions that go on over there. As a geographer, you must concern yourself with all these. And so no wonder that tonight we're going to study a topic which is known as settlement. And because settlement is quite broad, tonight's own is going to be settlement part 1. And I have to be quick to add that, especially you, the candidates, you know, as I keep telling you, when it comes to the geography, we have the paper 2. Okay, when we talk about the paper 1, that is the objectives. Then the paper 2, which has to do with both human geography and regional geography. And settlement is one of the topics that they keep asking questions about. That is not to say that you need to study settlement all because of exams. No, you need to have the knowledge. But I'm also prompting you, or sort of reminding you, that when it is time for Geography 2, the probability that you guys are going to have a question on settlement is very, very high. So quickly, let's make progress and see what Bogasam has for us all. All right. And so tonight, or per this study, what are going to be our objectives? Okay. So let's go through the objectives so that even as we move along, when we derail, in fact, we'll be brought back to track. And so objective number 1, we should be able to define settlement. As in, by the time we are done with this particular lesson, you should be able to know the meaning. You must know the meaning of settlement. And in case in the exams you are asked to define settlement, you should be able to do that. So what is going to be our second objective? The second one is to be able to state the types of settlement. Types of settlement, okay? Then I think we have another one. Wow. The third one is to define rural settlement. And so the question is where you find yourself. Is it rural or something else? That one you have to, say it yourself, or sort of give the answer yourself. Okay, the fourth one too is to define settlement pattern. Is that okay? Settlement pattern. Whereby sometimes we get confused when we talk about the settlement types and settlement patterns. It's like, oh, Charlie. So tonight, we're going to see all the differences. All right, let's make progress. Okay, so on objectives, we have objective number 5. As a learner, you should be able to state and explain the types of settlement pattern. The types of settlement pattern. You should be able to explain that. Is that okay? Good. So, settlement pattern, you should be able to explain that. Good. Then, we go to the next one. The next objective is to state the characteristics of rural settlement. So when we talk of rural settlement, what are some of the things, the features, or the signs that you can base on or sort of figure out to say that this type of settlement is a rural settlement? Okay? Then, oh wow, we have more objectives. Then objective number 7 is to define urban settlement. And so if we should have more time, we're not going to tackle only the rural settlement, but we'll tackle the urban settlement as well. Let's see if we can have another one. The 8th one is to state the types of urban settlement. And so by the time we are done, you should be able to, of course, provide answers to all these objectives, or sort of achieve all these objectives. Okay. I don't think we have more objectives, or say more objective again. So like quickly, let's go. Wow, let's try and see whether we can achieve our first objective. And as you can see on the screen, this is the definition of a settlement. So when we talk of a settlement, we are saying that it can be a building, just one building, okay? Or group of buildings inhabited by people for purposes of engaging in social, economic, political, religious, and cultural activities. And so don't forget that when we talk of a settlement, we can have just one building. It can also happen that we have only one person staying in that building. But I know the question you ask me is that what of if it comes to engaging in these social and economic and staff activities? Okay? So as we move along, we have deeper understanding. So simply put, a settlement is a place where people live. If for nothing at all, you should be able to have this definition at the back of your mind. That when we talk of a settlement, it is a place where people live. So where you are living now, I don't know whether you are in Carrier, Twanse, or maybe Sapasi, Mim, Mufram, you know, such places. That's where I had my national service. That's in the Achumamponua district. And, you know, Yinahini was our capital, and the very town that I have my service, Adobera. So, greetings, special greetings to all the people of Adobera, especially Adobera DAJHS, Bogasam. You're one of your own, is sending you special greetings. And so, wherever you are, that place that you are finding yourself, where you are living, that place is a settlement. Is that okay? A place where people would live. So long as people live at a particular place, that place becomes what? A settlement. Is that okay? Now, it can be as small as a single house. Is that okay? In a remote area, or as large as a mega city with over 10 million residents. Is that okay? So it can be a single house. That single house is also a settlement. Is that okay? You need not to like see millions of buildings, including the story buildings and all that, and the cars before you think that this place is a settlement. No. Even a single house is what? A settlement. Is that okay? So can we have some examples? So examples include cottage. Okay? As others will pronounce it, college. You know? So cottage. Right? Then we have hamlets. Is that okay? Villages, towns, and the word, the cities. Is that okay? So when we talk of some of the examples of settlement, we have cottages, hamlets, villages, towns, and the word, the cities. But as we move along, we delve much into it, and then we see what geography has to offer us. Right. And so on your screen is a cottage. So then when we talk of a cottage, what is a cottage. So now we're saying that this is a small, old-fashioned house, often found in the countryside. A small, old-fashioned house, often found in the countryside. When we talk of the countryside, what do we mean by that? You know, the side of the country. Is that okay? The sort of the outskirts of the town, the outskirts of the country, not found at where we have many buildings, okay? But sort of this one, finding itself outside the country, but not too far, just at the outskirts of the country. Is that okay? Let's see whether we can get some image to help us. Good. And so this is a typical cottage or an example of a cottage. This is the Ghanaian cottage type. And so depending on which country that you are talking about, we can have different shapes of this type of building, different styles of this building forming or say being a cottage. Is that okay? And then I must be quick once again to add that when it comes to the settlement, in fact, we have, as far as the geography syllabus at the senior high school level is concerned, we have settlement worldwide, as in the general settlement, okay? Then we scale down to Africa, West Africa, and particularly the candidate country. And so you realize that, in fact, most of the types of settlement, or what I'm going to sort of facilitate for you, will talk much or sort of border more on issues or settlement concerning Ghana. But as you know, the differences between that of the world and the candidate country is not that of an issue. I'm saying this because once we know the definition of settlement, even as we are trying to study it under Ghana, when you go to everywhere or any part of the world, the definition remains what the same. But just like the cottage that I've talked about, when we talk of the cottage, what I showed you is a typical type in Ghana. So it tells you that what if you should go to other countries, you will see a different building altogether. So this is an example of a cottage. Right. Then I made mention of Hamlet as well, as some of the examples of these are settlements. And so when we talk of Hamlet, what is a hamlet? Okay, good. Hamlet, we are saying that a hamlet is a small human settlement. Once again, a small human what? Settlement, considered smaller than a village, and usually without what? A church. And so what it means is that the hamlet, the sort of advance, will be a little ahead of the cottage. So as in the cottage that we saw just a building, a hamlet, we can have more what? Buildings. But normally we don't have, say, like a church there, okay? They manage their own affairs. Is that okay? So let's see whether we have a picture or say an image to aid our understanding. And so on your screen, if you can see, you see we have about 2-3 buildings there to show you, as my cameraman is doing, or my producer, Amasi, is doing her best to show you on your screen. Good. So as you can see on your screen, this is an example of a hamlet, okay? And so the hamlet, you can see that it is ahead, or sort of it advances more than the cottage. So the hamlet is ahead of the cottage, but then it is smaller than a village. Is that okay? So as we move along and we talk about the village, you will see the difference. So we are saying a hamlet is a small human settlement considered smaller than a village and usually without a church. Okay, so on Hamlet, good. There's another image to deepen your understanding. And we can see some lovely children over there. In fact, future leaders. Nobody knows their future with the exception of their maker. All right? Good. We can see another type of hamlet where I want to believe that they are tourists. Some white ladies have been to the place and they are admiring the place. And you can see all the children also being very happy to see tourists in their vicinity, also in their environment. Okay, so still making progress. Now let's talk about village. Okay, let's talk about village. And so when we say a village, what is a village? As you see in these parts of our country, Ghana, you meet someone tells that in fact everybody has a village. Myself, I have a village, and my village is known as Esu Trema, a suburb of Adeso in the eastern region. And so I know you also have a village, especially when it is time for Xmas, you go there. That is where you really have a feel of the Xmas. When you are in the cities, Xmas, you don't really feel it. But it all depends on your understanding and your orientation. And so village is also a settlement that we need to talk about as far as geography is concerned. And so when we talk of a village, what is a village? A village, on the other hand, is a settlement larger than a hamlet, just as I said, that a hamlet is smaller than a village. This statement also is the same, that a village is larger than a settlement. They are all the same. So village, larger than a hamlet, but smaller than a town. Yes. Village, larger than a hamlet, but smaller than a town. So it tells you that town is also ahead of what? A village. Is that okay? Although it is often used to describe both hamlets and smaller what? Towns. And so what we are trying to say here is that although there are differences between cottages, between hamlets and the village itself, but mostly we use the village to mean all of them. Is that okay? Sort of when we talk of a village in our part of the country, Ghana, when someone says or tells you that I'm going to the village, it could be a cottage, it could be a hamlet, and it could be a village itself. As far as the statistics of Ghana that we know are concerned, per the population size, we can define what a village is and all that. Even as we go ahead, you get to know that. And so people use village to mean all these. All right. So with a population typically ranging from a few hundred to few thousand, a few hundred to a few thousand. And so if you should visit the Ghana Statistical Service website, get to know how a village has been defined from the other settlements based on what population. I want to believe that we'll meet such a question even as we move along. So let's see. Okay, so we have an image here. So this is an example of a village. Okay, you can see the buildings rectangular in shapes. Okay, and roofed with corrugated iron sheets. See, for a village, normally it's hard to see some of these grasses used for the roofing, but it all depends on the context in which you are trying to put your information across. Okay. Now, a village may consist of buildings such as houses, okay, shops, schools, and community health-based planning services compounds, as we normally say, CHIPS compounds. Okay, probably someone has been mentioning the CHIPS compound, but the actual meaning of the CHIPS has been something else. And sometimes, if you don't take care, because we pronounce it CHIPS compound or CHIP compound, you may think we have an I there. We don't have any I there. It's CHPS, Community Health-Based Planning Services. And be careful you don't see systems. Community Health-Based Planning Services compounds. So though villages are often located in rural areas, and so there's another concern. When we talk of a rural area, what is a rural area? Okay, the term urban village is also applied to certain urban neighborhoods. And so here, what we are trying to say is that sometimes you find yourself in urban centers, but then we can use the term urban village to refer to a particular section of the urban center. Is that okay? Of course, even sometimes in the cities, you go to certain parts of the cities, and then you even love to be in your typical village, because your typical village, you have fresh air to breathe in and out, okay? And then it's like the environment is serene. Is that okay? But certain parts of the cities, hey, excuse me. And so we can use the term urban village to refer to these portions, also these sections of the cities or the urban centers. Okay. Now, what is a town? Well, we said a village is larger than a hamlet, but then it is smaller than what? A town. So what then is a town? Okay. Are you living in a town or you are living in a village? Good. And so we are saying a town is a built-up area, okay, with a name. A town has a name, okay? Defined boundaries. So the question someone will ask is that, does that mean that the villages, they don't have names? Of course, villages also have what? Names. But sometimes these names don't last, because maybe Papa Kofi's village. And so if the buildings collapse, that ends the village. I remember when we were conducting the census, during the demarcation time, those settlements were existing. But when it got to the time for the actual enumeration, you go there and you'll be looking out for the buildings, and then you don't find them. Okay? And so a town is a built-up area with a name, defined boundaries, and local government. Okay? They have their own system of governance. Okay? Then that is larger than a village and generally smaller than what? A city. Is that okay? And so as you can gradually assimilate the differences between all these, I want to believe that you will not be confused along the line. We started from a cottage, we came to a hamlet, a village, and now we are on town. And so it must be noted that the criteria to distinguish between them vary considerably in different parts of the world. And so when we talk of the criteria, we are talking about the factors that we use or sort of base on to come out with a town. In our part of the country here, we use more of the population sizes, or the population size, that when we have an area with a population less than 5,000, then that area can be described as what? A rural settlement. I wouldn't like to rush. Let's take it step by step as we move along. So this is also an example of a town. And so when you look at this picture, you will agree with me that this one comes with more buildings and more facilities than the village that we just looked at. Is that okay? So you can see a number of vehicles around, people going up and down, going by their activities. You see, there's buying, selling, and all that. The taxi driver opening the door to let the passengers get in so they can get money for the sales and to buy the fuel, probably some for his upkeep. All right, so we are done with the town. Now, the next one is what? City. So I believe you are appreciating the presentation, the pace at which we are going, okay? We are on a city. So when we talk of a city, what is a city? Is that okay? Now, a city is a large human settlement, okay? A large human settlement. It can be defined as a permanent and densely settled place with administratively defined boundaries whose members work primarily on a non-agricultural task. And so one key feature here is the fact that the inhabitants of the cities normally do not engage themselves in agricultural activities. Is that okay? But rather non-agricultural tasks, normally services, rendering services and all that. Is that okay? But because in the cities you hardly get that vast land to even sort of cultivate your crops. So if you want to actually get into farming, then you have to move to the hinterlands, also the rural areas, to get those vast lands to cultivate your crops. And so the cities, one characteristic is that the inhabitants do not engage themselves in agricultural activities, but rather into more tertiary services, secondary and tertiary services. All right, and so you can see this image on your screen. Don't you see this image that you see is not anywhere but where? Ghana. This is Ghana for you. Ghana is beautiful. Is that okay? Our country is very, very beautiful. And so those who know this area, you can tell for yourself. Those who have been plying the George Walker Bush Road, that is the N1 road, going to Roundabout, Accra Mall, trying to go to motorway. You can see all these buildings over there. And this is an aerial photograph of this particular portion of the city. And in fact, I must say that Ghana is very, very beautiful. And so we are pleading with those who normally come out with posts, the sticker flyers and all that, then they'll file them on the walls, and then you try to remove them, and it's like the papers will get stuck on the wall. No, these things dirty our cities. Please, let's desist from that and keep our cities very clean. All right. So it's, once again, must be noted that cities generally have extensive systems for housing, okay? Transportation, so we have housing, transportation, sanitation, utilities, land use, production of goods, and communication. Is that okay? But then when you go to the hinterlands, as in the villages and the hamlets and the cottages, you may not see some of these things over there. So in their density facilitates interaction between people, government organizations, and businesses. And so when we talk of their density, we mean the number of people that live in the cities. When you take per square kilometer and you try to know the number of people that is living in that particular area. So comparatively, realize that the density, also densities in the cities are very wide higher to that compared to that of the hinterlands or the rural areas. Okay. So now, having talked about the cities, let's go to types of settlement. Types of settlement. Okay. So when we talk of types of settlement, what are the types of settlement? Okay. Good. So basically, there are two types of settlement. Basically, we have two types of settlement. Is that okay? Now, the two types of settlement are, number one, we have what we call the rural settlement. Of the rural settlement. And then also we have urban settlement. So these are the two types of settlement. Please don't forget, whenever you are asked to state the types of settlement, please be careful you don't go and write nucleated settlement, linear settlement, and dispersed settlement. Please. These, as in the nucleated, the linear, and the dispersed, are not the types of settlement. And so once again, when we talk of the types of settlement, we have two main types of what? Settlement. And they are the rural settlement, okay? And then the urban settlement. Is that okay? So please take your time and follow the lessons. Is that okay? Good. Now, so having talked about the types of settlement to be rural and urban, let's take them one after the other and explain them, okay? And try to know more about them. And so when we talk of the rural settlement, what is rural settlement? We need to know something about that. And then also the urban settlement. What is urban settlement? So we take our time and then we study them one after the other. Is that okay? Right. So rural settlement on your screen. Okay. And so we're saying a rural settlement is a place with a population less than 5,000 people. Okay. A place with a population less than 5,000 which most of the inhabitants of these particular places engage themselves in primary activities such as agriculture or mining. Is that okay? And so in this context, you can see that we are using the number of people found at a particular place to define or sort of come out with a definite meaning or a definite name for such an area, to term it as what? A rural settlement, because the people there are less than 5,000 and they are mostly into agricultural activities and what? Mining. Okay. Right. And so as you can see this picture or say image, this is an example of a rural settlement. And so you can see the building, all that, and in fact they do well. They do well to the extent that they can use these grasses to roof the buildings, and no matter the downpour, no matter the rain that falls, they will not be wet inside, and they really enjoy. And then I must say that when you live in this area, especially in the afternoon, you go and find yourself in these types of buildings, more than an air condition. Is that okay? You feel very cool. You feel very good. Is that okay? And so you can see some of the inhabitants going to fetch water. I don't know whether they've gone to fetch the water already. Okay? Yeah. So an image deepen your understanding. In fact, I must admit that all these images, okay, all these images are Google images. They are not my images. They are Google images. Is that okay? Good. Now, let's look at forms of rural settlement. Forms of rural settlement. I say traditionally, rural settlements were associated with agriculture. Okay? Rural settlements were associated with agriculture. And so, if you concern yourself, or so you bother yourself with the evolution of settlement, how people started to find themselves under a shelter or whatever, you realize that we had some people living in caves, people living in trees and all that, and then gradually things started improving. And now you can see yourself, or say find yourself in a very nice building with POP ceiling and all that, the fans blowing, the air condition, just the remote, and in your bed you can just be changing the temperature of your room, or say in your room. Is that okay? And so it started from somewhere, and we, in one way or the other, are fortunate to enjoy the better part of it. And so traditional rural settlements were associated with agriculture. However, in modern times, other forms of rural communities have been developed. Okay? Other forms of rural communities have been developed. And some common forms of rural settlement include farmsteads. Okay? Farmsteads, hamlets, and villages. I've seen that. So they talked about it. And the farmsteads, you see that this one too has to do with buildings normally meant for farmers on their sites. Is that okay? So that Russian, through. Let's take our time. Okay? And so, forms of rural settlement, we talk of Farmstead Settlement. Okay? Farmstead, I must say. Farmstead Settlement. Okay? Good. Now, saying the land and buildings of a farm. The land and buildings of a farm are called farmstead. And so when we talk of a farmstead, sometimes people are into large-scale farming. It can be a cashew farm, palm plantation. It can be a cocoa farm, pineapple farm, pawpaw, or whatever. Okay? Mango. Then they come out with a structure right on site. And so that structure can be termed as what? A farmstead. So when we talk of the farmstead, we are talking of the particular land and then the building located on the land. So it is a form of what? Rural settlement. Then we have Hamlet Settlement, which we've talked about it already. And as we are saying, it's a small settlement, generally one smaller than a village, as we took our time to explain it when we talked about it. Then also we have village settlement, okay? And this is a group of houses and associated buildings larger than a hamlet, but smaller than a town situated in a rural area. Is that okay? So I hope these forms of rural settlement, you can't afford to confuse yourself with them. They are very straightforward and simple. Okay. Now, let's talk about settlement pattern. I say patterns, settlement patterns, okay? Where sometimes when people are asked to state the types of settlement, instead of rural settlement and urban settlement, they go and write nucleated, linear, and dispersed, or say scattered. So let's take our time once again and then go through them. So settlement pattern. By saying a settlement pattern refers to the way buildings and houses are distributed. Don't forget, the way that buildings and houses are distributed in a rural settlement. I take it again. A settlement pattern, okay, refers to the way buildings and houses are distributed in a rural settlement. And so when you find yourself in a rural settlement, the shape that the settlement takes, or say has taken, is that okay? That shape is a pattern. Okay? So it is a pattern of rural settlement. And so that is what we are talking about. The way the buildings and houses are being arranged and distributed across that particular landscape gives you a particular pattern. Normally, if you walk there, you can't see unless you take a keen interest to be going around that particular settlement. But now, because of technology, we can have the drone. So the drone, just with your remote or say regulator, then you regulate it, and then the drone will take aerial photographs of these settlements. And once the photograph is taken, that is when you appreciate the pattern of that particular settlement. And so we are saying it can also be seen as in the settlement pattern, okay? It can also be seen as the shape from above. Are you using an aircraft or say a drone? I think now the drone is common. And even sometimes people will be having funeral events, or say funeral rites, and then you see a drone trying to cover the rite, or say the funeral service. And sometimes the drone being in the air and taking snapshots of those who sympathized with the deceased family. So now, we're saying the shapes of early settlements were influenced by the surrounding landscape. Okay, the landscape. as in the shape of the land itself, also gives rise to a particular pattern of settlement. Then also they were shaped by other factors such as who owned the land. The owner of the land also determines the pattern of settlement that should take place over there. Okay? And whether the land was good for building on or not. Is that okay? Good. Now, types of settlement pattern. Types of settlement pattern. Okay? So there are three main types of settlement pattern. And these are, number one, we have nucleated or clustered settlement pattern. Is that okay? Nucleated or clustered settlement pattern. Then we have the linear settlement pattern, of which others call it chain village or ribbon development. Okay? Chain, village, or ribbon development. And we also have the dispersed or the scattered word settlement. So these are the three main types of settlement pattern. We have nucleated or clustered, linear or chain village or ribbon development, and dispersed or scattered word settlement pattern. All right. So this is a simple diagram to sort of aid your understanding of the settlement patterns. And so the first image, although they are joined together, but you can see we have lines in between them, differentiating one from the other. And so when you look at this one, nucleated, these are the settlements, okay? Compact, closely, or say, yeah, closely built with each other. Or say they are close to each other. So all these are the buildings, okay? Then we have the dispersed settlement, where we have one here, one there, another one there, and then, you know, scattered around. And so we say that another name for the dispersed settlement is what? Scattered settlement. Is that okay? Then we have the linear settlement. That one you can see it is as if there's a road here, and then along the road we have various buildings, okay? And so you realize that it is as if the road dictates to the inhabitants as to where they are supposed to build. And of course, that is the reality. And so you see the buildings along a particular route. It can be a road, it can be a railway, a sea coast, and other transportation routes. Is that okay? So we have nucleated settlement pattern, dispersed settlement, then linear settlement. But what normally happens is that landscape historians, okay, sort of use the patterns to come out with the types of what settlement. That is how come sometimes when we talk of the types of settlement, people quickly make mention of these nucleated, dispersed, and then the linear. By natural fact, when we talk of the types of settlement, we are talking about rural settlement and then what? Urban settlement. But types of settlement patterns, okay? I'll say types of settlement pattern, I must say, that one, we are talking of the shape of the settlement. Or say the shapes of the various what? Settlement. And so if we have the shape such that one building is here, another one is there, and even sometimes you have a single one somewhere, where sometimes we term it as what? Isolated type of settlement pattern. And so depending on these shapes, then we come out with these types of patterns. Okay, nucleated, the buildings are close to each other. Then we have the linear, built along a route, and then we have the dispersed, okay, whereby the buildings are scattered. Now, so another image here. So you can, for the nucleated, you can see here that we have the buildings here around close to each other. Is that okay? They are compact. They are very close to each other. The distances between them, not that far. The distance between one building to the other is not that far. And so this is a clear example of a nucleated settlement. Then when we come to the linear, you can see that this could be a road, okay? And you can see the buildings built along the road. Is that okay? So the buildings built along the road. We have some here, some at the other side. And so this is linear. Just from the name, you see, and when you take the AR out, we have what? Line. So linear in a line form. Is that okay? So when we take them one after the other, we'll appreciate their meanings. And then you see this building alone somewhere. Okay? So that is what we term as the isolated type of what? Settlement pattern. But then once again, the three main settlement pattern is the nucleated, the linear, and then the dispersed. So we come to dispersed here, as I've explained earlier. We have one building here, another one there, another one there. So the distances between them very, very far. Okay, good. Now, still on settlement pattern, identifying a settlement pattern on a topographic map. So this is just an aspect that I am bringing in to sort of create your awareness on the fact that sometimes you can be given a topo sheet, a topographic map, what we normally simplify it as what? A topo sheet. And then on the topo sheet, you are asked to sort of state the settlement pattern of a particular portion of it where we have some buildings. Is that okay? So, and then sometimes the objective tests, the first 10 questions, you know, we have a map there. Then you'll be asked questions on the map to answer. Then you may have some of these type of questions over there. And so this is a typical example of a topo sheet on your screen, and you can study. It's unfortunate that this one we don't have the key, because I'm just bringing in this for you to know that you can be asked in the objective test to actually come out with a particular settlement pattern as per the topo sheet that will be given you. I'll say the first 10 questions, which is part of the question paper. Okay, that's the paper 1 and paper 2. So just for you to be aware. All right, so nucleated. Now let's take the nucleated settlement. Okay, so I said a nucleated settlement is a type of settlement pattern that features a close grouping of buildings, often around a central feature like a church or a town square. Is that okay? It's a type of settlement pattern, the nucleated, that it features a close grouping of what? Buildings. The buildings are grouped together. Okay? Of course, the buildings, once we say the buildings are grouped, it means they are close to each other. And they are often around a central feature. There's a particular feature that attracts people to build around it. And they keep building close to each other. And eventually, that place forms what we call a nucleated what? Settlement pattern. An example is Kwano near Kumasi. Kwano near Kumasi. And the houses are arranged around a broad street, and the settlement have a definite center. Personally, I've not been to Kwano before, but per literature, I've come to know that Kwano is an example of a nucleated settlement pattern near Kumasi. So those of you who know Kwano, you can attest to this fact And if you like, you call me to give you more information about Kwano as far as nucleated settlement pattern is concerned. So let's continue. Let's make progress and see if we have more information about the nucleated. And let's talk about the advantages of nucleated settlements. When buildings are built close to each other, can we envisage some advantages or some merits, some good, some importance, some reasons? Is that okay? Some significance? Okay. So the candidates, all these are terminologies that in one way or the other mean the same. So if you don't meet advantages, but you meet significance or say merit, it's the same thing. So when we talk of nucleated settlement pattern, what do you think will be some of the advantages? And so we are saying that in nucleated settlement, people live close to their neighbors. And it is true. Of course, we have established the fact that the buildings are close to each other. And so the people, even per the location of their buildings, they live close to their neighbors. And this proximity makes communication quicker, as being close to each other helps in relaying information. Is that okay? Or sort of disseminating information. Because they are close to each other with a little whistle, everybody gets to know what is actually happening in their environment. So makes communication quicker and easier than in linear and dispersed settlement. I say because people are closer together, it is also easier to perform joint tasks such as the buying and selling of goods and services. The people are together, they are close to each other. Okay? Just a walking distance, you are at the doorstep of your neighbor. And so, because of that, they are being encouraged to come together for a common task or say a common goal. Is that okay? And so, example like buying and selling of what? Goods and services. Then they do it together and it fetches them lots of money. Is that okay? So, nucleated. That is one advantage. Then also, creating a centralized governing body also becomes a more simplified process because of the proximity of people to important locations in their settlement. Right? They are close to each other in terms of governance. It becomes quite simple because any information you put across, the people get to know, they become aware of it, and then they act accordingly. Is that okay? Right. So disadvantages of nucleated settlement as they are close to each other. Can you talk of one or two disadvantages? One or two demerits? Is that okay? As they are close to each other, don't you think that if we have infectious diseases, they can easily contract it? Yes, it is true. We are close to each other. Just like when COVID, hit all of us. To the extent that even when you are with your own family members, you become scared. So imagine someone is close to you and this person has contracted the COVID. It's very, very high. And so spread of diseases is very, very common among nucleated settlement patterns. And then also there can be inadequate food, inadequate water supply, inadequate land for farming and all that, because you are together, the little that is at your disposal, everyone wants to have his or her share. And so sometimes it becomes the fittest survive scenario or matter. So if you are not strong enough or not wise enough, you'll be behind. And so nucleated settlement can also edge out farmland, requiring some goods to be transported into the settlement center for trade. Okay. So still on the disadvantages of Inuculated settlement, I said due to the close proximity, also due to the proximity of living arrangements in Nucleated settlement, infectious diseases spread more easily than in other types of settlements. Okay? Unsanitary conditions, such as the lack of planned sewer systems, because they are close to each other, the gutters are choked. These silt cannot drain out. So from time to time, they have to desilt them and all that. Then also contribute to disease progression within Nucleated settlement. So because they are close to each other, even an attempt to treat these diseases also becomes something else. Because once someone is healed and the other is not healed, and they are close to each other, the healed one also begins to fall sick again. Okay? Good. Now, let's go to linear settlement. Linear settlement. As in linear settlement is a settlement pattern. Okay? It is a settlement pattern where the buildings are constructed in lines and often along transport routes such as roads, railways, rivers, sea coast, and canals. I take it again. Linear settlement is a settlement pattern where the buildings are constructed in lines, or the buildings are built up in lines, and they are often along transport routes such as roads, railways, rivers, sea coast, and canals. In other words, there is an area of land with buildings that have a trend of spreading in a straight line. Buildings that have a trend, okay, of spreading in a straight line. That is linear settlement pattern. Right. So still on the linear settlement pattern, I say where linear settlements follow a road, the road often predates. Is that okay? The settlement, as in the road directs or sort of teaches the inhabitants where to put their buildings. Is that okay? I say others are also formed due to physical restrictions like coastlines, mountains, hills, or what? Valleys. And linear settlement may have no obvious center. Is that okay? They may have no obvious center, just like the Nucleated, where maybe they are built around a particular word feature. For linear settlement, they have no obvious word center, but along transport word routes, like the railways, the roads, and then the sea coast and all that. There is the advantage of easy access to roads. And so when it comes to the advantages of linear settlement, we have easy access to what? To roads. In other words, you want to go somewhere, you finish dressing up, just a walking distance, you are at the roadside. And then you can board your vehicle and go your way. But Nucleated, you can imagine a certain Nucleated settlement, you don't have road networks there. And so imagine a pregnant woman is about giving birth. I don't know whether they are going to give her a piggyback or something. And this with a protruding stomach, how do you give the person a piggyback? That one wouldn't work. Okay? And so the Nucleated settlement pattern, accessibility to roads becomes a problem. But out of the linear settlement pattern, there is that easy access to roads. Is that okay? An example is Uhuza settlement of the Krobo in the eastern region of Ghana, as in the linear settlement. Okay? In fact, for Uhuza, I've not been there before, but I've come to learn that Uhuza settlement of the Krobo in the eastern region is a typical example of linear settlement. So I want to encourage all geography tutors to sort of organize excursions for their students to visit some of these places. I know that now if you want to embark on an excursion, it is not easy. In fact, authorities are not stopping us from embarking on an excursion, but they, due to the laid down procedures, the procedures themselves will limit, will prevent you from embarking on an excursion. So many ups and downs. And it's like, why don't you sit somewhere and then breathe in fresh air than to worry yourself to organize excursions for these students? Of course, authorities too have tangible reasons for laying down such procedures, and you also have to agree with them, because there have been instances where students embark on excursions and the unthinkables happen, and parents will be in serious trouble. And so let's try to manage the situation. You make things well. Just try to organize yourself well. And why not? You'll be good to go. Okay. So it means we are done with the linear settlement. Now let's go to the third type of settlement pattern, which is known as dispersed settlement. Dispersed settlement. So dispersed settlement is the settlement pattern where the houses are spread out. The houses are spread out over a wide area, usually separated by a few hundred meters with no central focus. Is that okay? So the houses, or say the buildings, are spread out over a wider area. And these buildings, sometimes the distances between them are about 100 meters. Is that okay? So 100 meters. It can be 200 meters, it can be 300 meters. So you can imagine, one building is here, you have to cover some distance before you get to the next building. And the population is sparsely distributed. The population is sparsely distributed, and there are usually no services in a dispersed settlement. When we say no service, that's in each and every household, or every house does their own things. Is that okay? And so nobody can be found in rural areas. Okay, it has the advantage of more privacy. Okay, so talking of the advantages of dispersed settlements, there is more what? Privacy. When you do your thing, you do your own thing. Nobody gets to know about it unless the person intentionally walks to your place, or maybe comes to your place to look at what you are doing. If not, nobody will get to know. You have your privacy. However, security-wise, the inhabitants are not that safe since they are far away from one another. Is that okay? We have one house here, cover about 100 meters, 150 or 200 before you get to the next house. And so what if something bad is happening at, or say, in one house? By the time the other people will get to know, the bad thing might have already happened. And so security-wise, dispersed settlement is not good for us. Then also interaction with people is not enough. And so you are in your own corner, your own house. You don't interact with the other people. Maybe once a while. Okay? When that one also happens, it is not good enough. And examples are Lamboya and Nayoko settlement near Boku in Ghana. These settlements too have not been there before. Oh, Bogasa. I think I have to be visiting these places, and for sure the opportunity will come, and I have to visit all these places. So that is about dispersed settlement. All right, let's see if we have more. Okay, so now let's look at some of the regions in Ghana where dispersed settlement predominates. In other words, where we have more of the dispersed settlement. So we go to the regions. We have Upper West region, Upper East region, the Northeast region, Savannah region, and Northern region. So you bear with me that these as the sort of some of the new regions that have been carved from the previously 10 regions, which now we have 16 what regions. Just like the Savannah region is a new one, Northeast is also a new one. And so if it's hard to be with the old one, then we can talk of Upper East region, Upper West, and Northern region. And so these three regions have given birth to the Northeast. I must say the Northern region has given birth to the Northeast, and then the Savannah region. So let's see whether we can get some map to good. We have the new map of Ghana on your screen after the referendum. Is that okay? And so we have the Upper West here. So we are saying that this part of Ghana, Dispersed Settlement is common there. We have Upper East here, Dispersed Settlement is common there. We have Northeast. Is that okay? Northeast. Also, we have Dispersed Settlement there. Then we have Northern region here, Dispersed Settlement. Then Savannah what region, Dispersed what Settlement. And so the northern sector of Ghana, if you want to know more about the Dispersed Settlement, you can tour these places and you really love them. Okay, so let's also look at ways by which dispersed settlement hinder economic development. Do you agree to that? Okay, do you agree that dispersed settlement can hinder development? If you agree, then I also agree. And so one of the ways by which dispersed settlement hinder economic development is the fact that since settlements are widely apart, siting development projects, especially transportation routes, becomes problematic. Okay? We have the buildings are scattered, and now we want a particular point, or say a particular location to site a facility. Is that okay? And now that these buildings are scattered around, where at all should we have the facility? And so it becomes a problem. Where do we site it? It becomes a problem. Is that okay? So that is one of the ways by which dispersed settlement pattern hinders development. Then provision of social amenities in dispersed areas becomes difficult, and for that matter comes with a huge cost. And because the people are scattered, the population is sparsely cut across. The people are sparsely populated. Okay? And so if you want to sort of provide social amenities, does that mean that you have to go to the various houses? If it is a borehole, you drill one here, go to the other place and do this. Meanwhile, one can serve all the houses over there. So that one too becomes a problem. And if you indeed want to serve the people, it comes with a huge cost. It comes with a huge cost. So that is also a problem, a factor that hinders what development in this dispersed area. For instance, it will be difficult and expensive to transmit a facility like electricity. Is that okay? Whereby in the nucleated settlement pattern, maybe 2 or 3 poles can serve many people. But here, let's say about just 2 houses. You need about 10 light poles, or say electricity poles, before you can reach out to them for these people to have light. And so you can imagine, it becomes very, very expensive. And for that matter, it will take time before the people in such areas will have these facilities, or say social amenities. Now, the third point is the fact that provision of facilities like schools and hospitals in dispersed areas will be underutilized. Of course, when it comes to health centers, very, very key. And so the government will do its best to provide these people with these health facilities. But the point is that these facilities will be underutilized. because the people, one, are not many. And even if they are many, they are sparsely located. Okay? Because one house is here, the other one over there. So even if someone is sick, the mere fact that the person has to cover that long distance before accessing the health facility, the person may not come. They may try to, fall on these herbs. That is not to say that the herbs are not good. The herbs are good, but we need to know the dosage, okay, and how clean they are. We should have them under hygienic conditions, okay, and when taking them, not that the fact that the herb can help, and then you boil it, start drinking and drinking and drinking without knowing the effects sometime to come. So the herbs are good, but let's have the requisite knowledge about them so that we don't take overdose. All right. Now, people, the next factor that hinders development in the dispersed settlement patterns is also the fact that since people live far away from one another in dispersed areas, security problems are being created, just as I said early on. Security problems are being created. When something bad happens at one end, how do the other people get to know? And after getting to know, what time will it take them for them to come to your aid or sort of come and rescue you? By the time they get to your end, covering about 100, 200 meters, the snake might have bitten you already. Then the poison has already gone through your bloodstream. And so if you don't have the medicine to cure it, and then it means you are going. Sorry about that. Now, difficulty in generating local resources for development since population is generally poor. And so we call something IGF, internally generated fund, sort of pooling local resources together. If maybe the government has promised of providing your community, or say your settlement with a particular social amenity, but it's still not coming. It's taking time for that to come to a fruition. Then you can take your own initiative. You can start doing something that let's pull resources together and then have the facility in place. But here is the case, because you are sparsely, distributed in that area, and everybody seems to be on his or her own, even the zeal or the sort of the ability to come together to pull these resources together will not be there. And so this is also a challenge when it comes to dispersed settlement patterns as far as development is concerned. Right. So now, having talked about these three main types of settlement patterns, let's look at the characteristics of rural settlement. Characteristics of rural settlement. And so when we talk of a rural settlement, as we started going through the objectives, then I said these characteristics are some of the things, or say the signs or the features that one can base on to describe an area as a rural settlement. And so let's go through these characteristics, and I believe when we are done, in fact, you get to know that geography is a very, very interesting subject. And don't forget that at the senior high level, you are studying 4 aspects of the geography. That is human geography and regional geography. Talk of the physical, or in other words, the map work. So what we are doing now is human geography, which is settlement. And so one characteristic feature, or I must say one characteristic of a rural settlement is that agriculture is the fundamental occupation of the rural people. Agriculture is the fundamental occupation of the rural people and forms the basis of rural economy. And so if you go to places and it appears that the economic activity that the people normally do is agriculture, as in tilling the land, okay? then it is an indication that that place is a rural area. So don't forget that when I was explaining the city to you, I told you that the inhabitants of the cities normally do not engage themselves in agricultural activities. Is that okay? But rather services, more of the tertiary services, okay? Or tertiary economic activity. And so agriculture is the fundamental occupation in rural areas. Then many of the rural occupants derive their life support or basic economic needs from land-based primary economic activities such as farming, hunting, and fishing. And so if the people normally venture into farming, hunting, and fishing, then it is an indication that that place you find yourself is a rural settlement. Okay. Now, characteristic number 2, the rural communities are smaller in area than the urban centers in terms of the area, as in the total place where the people find themselves. Okay. The size of the place compared to that of the cities, or say the urban centers, rural areas are smaller. Okay, the land area is smaller. Then the third one is that rural settlements are sparsely populated because of rural-urban migration. Is that okay? They're sparsely populated. When you go to the rural areas, normally you don't see many people there. Why? Where have they gone to? In fact, these people, especially the youth, they've all left their rural areas for, say, Kumasi, Accra, Takoradi, Cape Coast. Is that okay? All in search of greener pastures. And so you come to Accra, you go to Kumasi, Takoradi, and these places, the cities in Ghana, many of them, they are from the villages. And lo and behold, some of them have made it big, and they are not planning to go back. They are staying in the cities. Okay? The next feature, I would say characteristic, is the fact that they are mostly dispersed. In the rural areas, the people are mostly dispersed. In other words, they are sparsely populated. And so once you get to know that, then it tells you that that place is a rural area, because there's no way that you'll be in the city and then the people are sparsely populated. No. Even that small portion of land there, someone is claiming it. Is that okay? And so in the urban centers, you not see land being there like that. No. They will build on it for you. Is that okay? Good. So on the characteristics of rural settlements, the buildings are mostly made of local materials such as bricks, okay, bamboo, often constructed of swish and thatch roofs. Thatch roofs. And I think I've shown you some of the pictures with the thatch roofs already. And so the buildings are mostly made up of local materials. And then the next one is that none or just a few public social amenities like schools, post offices, police stations, and potable water are available. Okay, and so some of the, in fact, most of the rural areas, you will not see some of these facilities there. But I think for Ghana this time around, almost every village, we have a school there, and that is a plus. That is a plus. That is a plus. Okay. The next characteristic is that the people in the rural areas are less mobile. In other words, they hardly go to places. Let's say they go to their farms, come back, find some food to eat, and they are all around, unless the person has intentionally planned to leave for a different area, or say go to another area. If not, that person, or say the people are there, they are less mobile, and therefore social relations among them are intimate. Is that okay? So in a village, everyone knows everyone. When you go to the village, you make mention of one person's name, almost everybody knows that person. Just like my village, you come there and you say you are looking for Boga Sam. Almost everybody knows me. Everybody knows Boga Sam. And I know you to where you are in your village. Or say when you go back to the village and you make mention of maybe your swag name, you know, even the small children, as someone will say, they know you. Is that okay? So in the village, everyone knows everyone. And so the social relations are that intimate, such that you even finish preparing your meal, and then your neighbors can join you, and then you all eat together. But in the urban centers, hey, it's not like that. Most of them are living in their self-contained facilities, or say accommodation. And so, how do you even know the food that they eat? But in the rural setup, if it is this ampisi, that cassava that you have cooked, then everybody will get to know that you are eating cassava. And that is it. That's their style of living over there. So that is also another characteristic of the rural settlement. Then the degree of social solidarity, as in the sense of, belonging to each other is there. Unlike the urban centers, nobody seems to care about hinterlands or rural. That oneness is there. Is that okay? So the solidarity is greater in villages as compared to urban areas. And common experience, purposes, customs, and traditions form the basis of unity in the villages. And so let's see if we have more characteristics on the rural settlement. If not, then we go for a short break, then we come and continue, okay? We still have more. And so the ninth one is that another characteristic feature of the rural society is the joint family system, okay? The joint family system. The family controls the behavior of the individuals. And generally, the father is the head of the family and is also responsible for maintaining discipline among members. And so you dare misbehave, daddy will discipline you. And even in the rural sector, everybody will get to know that you are bad. Everybody will get to know that you are bad. But in the urban centers, it's a different ball game altogether. If you want to do whatever you want to do, nobody seems to care, because even daddy and mommy, they are at their workplaces, you know. But that's not to say that the urban inhabitants or settlers are bad compared to that of the rural areas. Then both human and animals tend to share the same compound. So in the rural environment, I'll say set up, you see the buildings over there. Then there's a pen, or say a structure where animals are being housed. Is that okay? Let's see whether we have more to talk about. Okay? Right. So most of the houses are rectangular in shape. Okay? That is the rural settlement houses. They are rectangular in shape with gable roofs. When we talk of the gable roofs, it's like I don't know if I can say a triangle, you know, the roof that really slopes. So let me draw something on the screen for you to see. A gable roof. Have you seen this? What we call what gable roof. And then you have the structure here. Let's say your building. Okay, this roof this way. And maybe you have your door. Is that okay? Yeah. So this is what we term as the gable roof. And then in the northern part of Ghana, a house type is a round hut, and a number of them is arranged to form compound houses. And I believe in the early stage of the presentation or the lesson, I showed you some of these houses. Okay. So the buildings are built with clay or sticks or both, and roofed with grass or leaves or corrugated iron sheets. And so not only the thatch roofs, when you go to rural areas, there are some of them, we have these corrugated iron sheets that they use. And then the household may have a poultry yard, a pen. When I say a pen, not the pen I'm using to write, but then the sort of the house of the animals, like the goats and then the sheep. Is that okay? Called a pen. So a pen for household animals such as goats, sheep, and so on. Is that okay? Let's see if we have more, because it appears we need to go for a break. But just before we go, in some parts of Ghana, rural settlements are located on inaccessible mountain tops and places which were easily defended in the past. Is that okay? Rural settlements in Ghana are usually sited along water courses and near springs. And so you will see that for this one, we are talking of the characteristics of rural settlement in Ghana. In fact, I should have stressed on that one, because I talked about the general one, and then this is the so when the general one ended here, as in we had 10 of the characteristics, and of course most of them are found in Ghana. So after the general one, but I told you that the settlement, we treat it at the world level, and then we scale it down to our very home region, or say home country. So this one is the Ghana one, which we have talked about. And then we have more points. This one we've talked about. And then we go to this one we've talked about. Then, oh wow. So it means, in fact, we are done when it comes to the characteristics of the rural settlement in Ghana. Let's go for a short break. And when we come, we try to look at some of the past questions that have ever dropped on settlement. Once again, my name is Samuel Sakyi. Let's break for now. I thank you.
Student, please take note of the following changes to our timetable on Joy Learning. The revision show for SHS shows Monday to Friday at 7:30 p.m. with a repeat at 9:30 a.m. The revision show for JHS shows Monday to Friday at 6 p.m. with a repeat at 12:30 p.m. SHS 1 lesson shows Monday to Friday at 1:30 p.m. with a repeat at 7:30 a.m. SHS 2 lesson shows Monday to Friday at 2:30 p.m. with a repeat at 8:30 a.m. JHS 1 lesson shows Monday to Friday at 3:30 p.m. with a repeat at 6:30 a.m. And JHS 2 lesson shows Monday to Friday at 5 p.m. with a repeat at 11:30 a.m. Hello student, please take note of the following changes to our timetable on Joy Learning. The revision show for SHS shows Monday to Friday at 7:30 p.m. with a repeat at 9:30 a.m. The revision show for JHS shows Monday to Friday at 6 p.m. with a repeat at 12:30 p.m. SHS 1 lesson shows Monday to Friday at 1:30 p.m. with a repeat at 7:30 a.m. SHS 2 lesson shows Monday to Friday at 2:30 p.m. with a repeat at 8:30 a.m. JHS 1 lesson shows Monday to Friday at 3:30 p.m. with a repeat at 6:30 a.m. And JHS 2 lesson shows Monday to Friday at 5 p.m. with a repeat at 11:30 a.m.
It's been a good 2 years. 2 years of fun, 2 years of education, 2 years of inspiration. We say Ayeko.
Joylearning has impacted a lot of Ghanaians.
To a large extent, yes, the channel has been impacted. There are lots of people who are hooked to Joylearning now.
It's a brother, it's a sister, it's a friend, a mother, a father we can all count on. As when we're in trouble as kids, we go to our parents, we go to our big brothers, our big sisters, and then tell them what our problem is. That's what Joy Learning is.
It's a channel that is making a lot of impact in our time.
Yes, I would say that Joy Learning channel has been very impactful and exciting and very educative because many students have benefited from Joy Learning.
For revision of notes for everything, Joy Learning got you sorted on that.
I would like to encourage all students to keep watching Joy Learning.
Joy Learning.
So higher and be the best.
Joy Learning.
Keep learning.
Welcome back from that short break. I believe you guys have been enjoying the lesson very, very well. And once again, to all our candidates, especially that of Presec Adeso, in fact, I salute all of you. And then all of you too watching me on YouTube, Facebook, all our social media handles, okay? I say a very big shout out to all of you. And finally, Achimota students, Achimota school students, we are solidly behind you. We've got your back. Is that okay? All right, so before we could go for a break, we're talking about the characteristics of rural settlement in Ghana. I want to believe that we exhausted every point under that. And so let's try and see whether we have some questions ever dropped on settlement when it comes to WASI. Is that okay? So on my screen now, as my producer is showing it to you, we have a question like, with reference to specific examples, describe the main types of rural settlements found in Ghana. There's a very interesting question, and as most of you are aware, this is our question of the day. And so I want to believe that my producer is going to activate the lines. And so 0302 211 705 0302 211 706. And so the lines are right on your screen. And so you can call me and then tell us the answers. When I repeat the question with reference to specific examples, describe the main types of rural settlements found in Ghana. When calling, please, you mute the volume of your TV set, okay? Don't listen to yourself on the TV. Either you distance yourself from the TV or you mute it. You just mute your TV and we can hear you clearly. Is that okay? Then you tell us your name, then where you are calling us from. Good. Right. Then SSC November 1998. What we normally say NOVDEC. Question 5B, you can cross-check and see. There was a question like, mention 5 main characteristics of rural settlement in Ghana. And I believe after following me on Joy Learning, this is your favorite channel, you'll be able to answer this particular question. 5 main characteristics of rural settlement in Ghana. Don't forget that we had about 10 characteristics generally about rural settlement. Then we scaled down to Ghana. Let's look at the main characteristics of rural settlement in Ghana. And so you should be able to answer this question. Also provide answers to this question. Okay? Then also SSSCE, November 2000, and it's like November. Doesn't mean that the NOVDEC, they like dropping settlement questions. Then question 6A. Question 6A. The question says, on the basis of population size, distinguish between urban and rural settlement in Ghana. Then illustrate with actual examples. Urban and rural settlement in Ghana. You know, for the urban, I'm yet to take you through. But if you really followed me, you should be able to define an urban settlement, especially using the population size of a particular area. Is that okay? And I even told you that you can choose to visit the site of the Ghana Statistical Service, okay? That we have a population size that is used to sort of define a particular settlement area as urban or rural. Then illustrate with actual examples. And so if urban, give us examples of urban centers in Ghana. If rural, you give us examples of rural areas in Ghana as well. Then, SSC November 2002, question 6BI. Name regions in Ghana where dispersed rural settlement predominate, as in where dispersed rural settlements are common. This one you should be able to answer, because I taught you and then even showed you a map of the that is the new Ghana map, and I gave about 6 regions where dispersed rural settlement patterns are common. Is that okay? And so I'm still waiting for your course to come in. Okay? All right. Hey, this NOVDEC. Well, who knows if this time around the mainstream examination, that is the WASI, you have questions on settlement, because you can't predict. For examination, if you do selective learning, it's like the risk is very, very high. What if you go to the examination hall and the questions put before you, what the very topics that you learned, you don't have questions on them? And so don't conclude that for settlement, it appears settlement questions normally drop during NOVDEC, also during the November, December examination. You need to study settlement as well. Is that okay? And so SSC November 2002, question 6BII. Explain 4 ways in which dispersed settlement hinder economic development. This one too, I took my time to take you through, you know, so you should be able to answer this one as well, or I should answer it for you. All right. Let's see. Okay, so it means we are done with some of the settlement questions that directly border on the lesson I've presented tonight. We have more questions on settlement. And so, as I keep appearing on your screen, we'll be doing our best to take ourselves through all these sections of settlement, or say aspects of settlement. So, more or less, we are done with the rural settlement. Let's say about 85-90% done with the rural settlement. Hello, Jennifer.
Hello.
Yeah, Jennifer, how are you?
Please, I'm fine.
Good. Where are you calling us from, Jennifer?
Please, I'm calling from Sunyani.
Sunyani, wow. Which school do you attend?
Please, Olagia Secondary School.
Wow, that's good. What do you have for us tonight, Jennifer?
Please, the last question.
The last question. You want to answer the last question?
Is Upper East region.
Okay, the regions where dispersed settlement dominates. Is that okay?
Yes.
So Upper East region is one.
Upper Upper West region.
The Upper West region 2 is 1.
Northeast region.
Northeast region is 1.
Savannah region.
Savannah region is 1.
And the last.
Oh, thumbs up, Jennifer. Well done, okay?
Okay.
Well done. Keep watching Joy Learning, okay?
Okay.
How many times do you watch Joy Learning in a week?
Please, I watch it every day.
Every day?
Yes.
That is very good. That is very good. My producer, will give my contact number to you behind the scene. And then if you have any problem studying geography, you just give me a call. Is that okay?
Okay, sir.
All right. I wish you all the best, Jennifer.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Right. So that is from Jennifer. A very good one, of course. So we are on urban settlements. And what is an urban settlement? So an urban settlement is a densely, okay? As in talking about density, the number of people living in a square kilometer. So an urban settlement is a densely populated area comprising mostly man-made structures that contain all of a society's administrative, cultural, residential, and religious functions. Is that okay? A densely populated area comprising mostly man-made structures that contain all of a society's administrative, cultural, residential, and religious functions. Then on the basis in Ghana, population is used as one of the key factors to define an area as urban or what? Rural. So we are saying on the basis of population size, an urban settlement is a settlement with a population of at least 5,000 who are primarily engaged in secondary and tertiary activities such as manufacturing, trading, commerce, and administration. So for urban centers or urban settlement, if for nothing at all, the people over there should be 5,000. Is that okay? So 5,000 and beyond. That is when we are using the population to demarcate an area as an urban center. At least we should have 5,000 people over there. Is that okay? Good. And these people, okay, a caller from Navrongo, please, your name and the exact place you are calling us from.
Please, my name is Elham, and I'm calling from Navrongo.
Navrongo, Charlie, I'm happy. When I get calls from such places, I become so happy. Let's hear you. What do you have for us?
Please, I'm answering the second question.
And what does the second question say?
5 characteristics of the rural settlement.
That's right. So let's go number 1.
Animals and human beings tend to live in the same environment.
So the animals and the people, also the human beings, live on the same compound. Good. The next one?
They live in a homogeneous society.
Homogeneous society. In terms of, let's say, cultural orientation and stuff like that, they are almost what? The same. Not so?
Please, usually their source of livelihood is agriculture.
Agricultural activities like what? Farming, fishing, hunting.
Like farming, fishing.
One time. Keep flowing for me. What
Please, they are dispersed settled. Their houses are not close to each other.
The houses are not close to each other. Is that what you said? Hello? Yes. Come again. Let's have that. Repeat that point. I want to get you clearly.
Okay.
I hope nobody is teaching you behind.
No.
Then it means you have not reduced or sort of muted your TV. So I'm getting a negative feedback here. So mute it. Or distance yourself from the TV.
Okay, please.
Good.
Please, in the villages, the houses are nucleated.
The houses are nucleated. Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay, what again?
And the fifth and last point is that.
The what?
The fifth and last point.
The fifth is the last point.
Yes, I mean the fifth point. They said we should give 5 points.
5. Oh, okay. So well done. But I want to get your name well. What do you say?
My name is Abdurrahman Elham.
Elham. I like the Elham. Yeah, I like. Thumbs up. Let me clap for you. Well done. Okay.
Thank you.
Keep watching Joy Learning. But you didn't tell me the name of your school.
Please, I attend CI Ahmadiyya Senior High School.
One time. So do tell your colleagues that they should be watching Joy Learning, okay?
Okay.
You'll benefit a lot. I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Please, I have your contact.
Yeah, talk to my producer. My producer will give you my contact, okay?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, dear. Okay, so very soon we'll bring the lesson to an end. Let's try to look at some ties of urban settlement. But we're still taking course, you can call and then tell us what you have for us. So ties of urban settlement, we can talk of town, okay? And this refers to a compactly settled area, usually larger than a village, but smaller than a city. And examples include Adeso, where I come from, Adeso in Ghana, and Osogbo in Nigeria. So our brothers and sisters from Nigeria who are here with us in Ghana, they will attest to this fact. And of course, all Nigerians who know this place. And then another type of urban settlement is what? City. We have city here. As in, this is an urban area of significant size with higher population and population density, and it's more developed than a town. Examples are Accra in Ghana. So Accra is a city, okay? London in England, say UK, okay? And Los Angeles in California. All these places are cities, okay? For Accra, I mean Accra here. And so maybe you have to be visiting London, Los Angeles, and then other cities around the world. Okay? Then we have agglomeration, also a type of urban settlement. So this is an extended or contiguously built up area of a city or town. This usually results from the unification of a city, the bracket a municipality, with nearby towns and villages that have become linked into a continuous urban area. The smaller settlements around the major urban centers are usually referred to as dormitory settlements. An example is Kaswa. In fact, this is where time will allow us to bring the lesson to an end. But before, all right, so tomorrow, 9:30 a.m., okay? Tomorrow, 9:30 a.m., this same lesson will be repeated. So in case you came in the middle way, as you did not start with me when I started the lesson, don't worry. My producer is saying that it will be repeated tomorrow, 9:30 a.m., just like any other subject. And YouTube too, you can go to YouTube, Joy Learning TV. YouTube, go there. You can have access to all our lessons. Okay, in fact, on Facebook, on all our social media handles. We want to do everything in our capacity to help you guys pass and pass well, acquire the requisite knowledge to become responsible people in future, for Ghana to keep growing from glory to glory. Once again, my name is Samuel Sakyi, and to all the candidates, we're still behind you. We're still behind you. Keep learning. You will not break down. You will not break down. Keep learning. And to my school management, especially Madam Lydia Mamle Bante, the assistant headmistress domestic of Achimota School, Mommy, I greet you. And to all my lovely ones all geographers, in fact, geography department, my head of department, Mr. Benasco Kwame. I greet all of you. I thank you. Until we meet another time, this is what I have for you. See you. Bye.
In the past 2 years, Joy Learning has given students around the world